Okay, warning before you start this episode. My thoughts are a bit more negative than most people's. I like to record these before I go and read any reactions or watch any videos about this, so this is just my raw take. But after recording this, I went and looked, and I couldn't help but notice how different my thoughts were. And I think it's literally just a case of preference. I'm not trying to be contrarian. But anyway, listen to what I gotta say. Hello and welcome to another Thoughts Per Episode, Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Edition. And the blood was quite prominent in this episode, wasn't it? There was quite a lot of squeezy ketchup in the first half of this episode. As I was hoping for, and as I was potentially misremembering, we got more Unohana versus Zaraki action. Because as I was watching it, I was like, oh, you know how last episode I was talking about, oh, I hope they expand on this fight and we see more of it. As I was watching the fight, I was like, oh wait, I think we did see this in the manga. Now, once again, and this might just be me expecting the world out of a single series of an anime, but we didn't have like the level of animation that we got with Uwak versus Yamamoto, and then later briefly Uwak versus Ichigo. That was the stuff I was really super duper impressed by, but I think just by regular human standards, this was a pretty cool fight. I mean, story-wise, it was a little abstract for my liking. Like, we never actually get explanation as to what Unohana's Bankai is. It's just very blood themed, and it seems like she can shoot blood out of her sword the way that Ichigo shoots laser beams out of his. Do you think Unohana was watching Ichigo fight in the Soul Society arc, and when she saw Getsuga Tensho, she was like, oh, so that's what it's like when a healthy, sane person does it. But she also had a move which looked a lot like Genji's Deflect in Overwatch, where there was just like loads of very quick sword swipes around her, all made of blood, of course. I don't know if I love how blood was handled in this. I mean, I guess it was realistic. It was like dark and clingy and gooey, but also sometimes a little bit, maybe it's just because it was in such insane quantities, but it was like a little bit too gushy, or not gushy, like it's not like classic Bleach where you'd get cut, there'd be a moment, and then it would gush out at super high speeds, which isn't exactly what I'm looking for, but it was more just, it just felt more like ketchup at points. Does that make sense? Am I picking at straws here? That's not even a term, is it? There was also the whole thing with half of Zaraki's face becoming a skull, and then the entirety of him becoming a skull at one point, which I think was supposed to symbolize his inner self or something, or him finding his inner power, because after that he suddenly becomes much, much faster. He starts flash stepping around the place, which isn't something I think we've ever really seen him do before. And they did do a really good animation quirk, by the way, at that point, where when he was swinging his sword, it really did seem like it was faster and more powerful. But yeah, as much as I hate to say it, there were a couple of shots which seemed either rushed or incomplete. Like there was the whole Unohana like falling backwards dying, and then just like the hard cut to like her dead face, but it didn't look like it was meant to be a hard cut. It just looked like it was a different version of the scene. It was weird. There was another scene as well, but I don't quite remember it. Overall, I think maybe I would have liked it if a visual style of a fight was more stylistic in choice. It just felt quite default to me. Like you could have done some cool stuff with the blood as like an actual solid color of red and like silhouettes and stuff. I don't know. I'm not artsy. And also I'm very aware that the last time I talked about the beginning of this fight, I said I wasn't really into it, and then I went and looked up people's opinions and they were all like, hell yeah, that was really cool. So I could just be talking out my ass. But again, something felt off. Also, speaking of things that felt off, when they were doing the flashback scene with Zaraki as a kid, and Unohana was like, oh man, just can't find any people to kill who put up a fight, and the guy was like, is that why you left this pile of bodies? And she turned around and she was like, how long has this pile of bodies been here? For some reason it was just really goofy, and I don't think it was meant to be. Also, while I think the voice actress for Unohana does a brilliant job in the modern scenes, I think she could have sounded and been animated to be, obviously not the voice actor's fault, to be more bored in the flashback scene, because the whole point is that she's super bored because no one's as strong as her, but she just kind of sounds like her normal Captain Unohana self, and she doesn't look particularly bored. So I don't know, it's all nitpicks with me today. I'm very sorry. I promise I enjoyed the episode. And then of course the second half of the episode was dedicated to them arriving at Oetsu's place. It's Oetsu, right? And he was eccentric and quirky, and there were booby women around. I know, we've been here before, haven't we? Kubo's got a very solid idea of quirky, and it tends to repeat. One of my criticisms about Bleach in general is that you can kind of see the same ideas repeated throughout different arcs and different characters throughout the series, and you've got like these archetypal characters, and Uetsu certainly falls into that category of the quirky teacher character who's apparently really strong and was perhaps rumored to be really strong and serious up until this point, but it turns out to be really doofy, and then you find out that he has got a dark side, and he throws the protagonist into a training montage which at first seems crazy and then seems stupidly dangerous, and it doesn't really give a particular reason for it. This is literally down to the phrasing of what I've just said. It's happened multiple times already in Bleach. I just described Urahara or Shinji and now Uetsu, but again, it's not something that's really annoying me, it's just a nitpick. Also, strangely constructed episode, you have to make sure you watch past the credits, because there's actually quite a lengthy scene past the credits about, spoiler, go watch it if you haven't, okay? You're gone, you've come back. Yeah, about Ichigo failing to tame an Asuichi, and Uetsu, promptly sending him home, which was really interesting to see, because when I remember reading the manga the first time and I was like, oh, here we go, it's a training montage, they're gonna throw Ichigo in and then he's gonna struggle, but he's gonna ultimately succeed, and to then just be like, focus on Renji, well done Renji, you passed, focus on Ichigo, but Ichigo, you failed. It's like, wait, Renji succeeded at something that Ichigo couldn't? Isn't Renji supposed to be weaker? That was a really interesting dynamic. Anyway, next episode we're getting everything but the rain, and that's pretty hype, so look forward to that, anime only watchers. And I will see you back here next week for my thoughts on the episode, hopefully less negative this time. Again, I focused a lot on the nitpicks, but I promise I just didn't have much to say about the positives of the episode. It was Bleach. I enjoy Bleach. I'll see you next week for more Bleach.